Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, to all my returning subscribers, and hello to all new viewers checking out my channel. Welcome. Today we're here to talk to Nina Sung, who's an actual singer and songwriter, but I'm going to let her introduce herself. Go ahead.
Hi guys, I'm Nina. I
can't keep my thoughts away from you. Must have been a year or two. I'm twiddling my thumbs just thinking about you.
I am a singer-songwriter turned producer. I did a couple stuff in like dance music under my real name Nina Sung, but now I have a new project, NinaReed, so it's a little different. It's more R&B.
Okay, so NinaReed.
Yes, that's my new project.
Okay, fair enough. Nina, I think you touched on one of the aspects that I think a lot of people face when they're aspiring to be a singer. Aspiring to be a singer is that concept of not being good enough or getting that criticism. Like, how did you move against it? Like when you indicate that you were bullied or something like that, of your voice not being the right tone or something. Like, how did you build upon that and like continue to push forward and pursue with that kind of inspiration or what you wanted to be?
You know, I think at the end of the day, it really just matters on how happy you are. I know it sounds so cheesy, but like at the end of the day, it's very simple. Does this make me happy? I always remember when I was younger, I was ashamed of singing in front of public. I remember I was like in a Target and I was kind of like singing to myself, and I thought nobody was around me, and then I realized there was another kid that heard me and his mom, and I like got really hot in the face, and I was just so ashamed and embarrassed, and it was just like not even a big deal. I mean, probably from their point of view, but like for me, it was just like I felt super naked. But I think I moved past it because at the end of the day, I really like to sing. I liked the way it was a fun thing. You know, I would sing in the shower, sing in the car with, and it was okay with my family hearing. I was just like happy doing it. So I was able to just kind of trudge forward and just persist. And I mean, it's not like you're ever gonna go through life, even as a professional. I'm sure even like Ariana Grande, I'm sure she goes through daily, like plenty of, people criticizing her and saying, why did you wear that? Or why did you do that? Or why that collaboration? Or look at her, like, what are you doing? And that's never gonna stop. So I've realized that just being good at something just means you're really, really good at just being able to continuously remember, maybe not spend so much energy on trying to like eliminate those thoughts, because sometimes when you're like, don't think of the color blue, you're only going to think of the color blue. Exactly. It's just to kind of shift your focus and to remember what, the positive things, like the moments where you are truly happy and that, you remember why you are doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know that you're Korean, you're back ethnicity, and being, I guess, understanding like the family dynamics a little bit. Like, how was your like family like supportive wise, or like how did they react to you want to be a singer and all that dynamic? So being Korean, how did that influence how you're a singer, but also how like your family reacted to it, and like what was their support like? I think it's one of the biggest questions a lot of people ask too as well.
I do get that question a lot, and I think it's because you don't see a lot of Asian Americans, in the media. I think things are changing though. As far as your question about my family, they knew I was all about music. They knew that I was always busy away tinkering away, just making my own like beats or like writing songs or playing the piano or the guitar or violin. They just kind of knew that was my thing. But when I remember the moment that I really came up to them and I like said, it was hard. This is what I want to do. I was already working actually like quietly behind the scenes, like writing and singing for other people. And one of the songs my very first song that I actually like wrote and recorded and released with this other producer ended up hitting like, it was dance music, so it was like in the top Beatport charts, and I was just like a featured vocalist. And it kind of hit some notoriety, but they don't actually know Beatport or Billboard. They don't care about that. They were just kind of like, I'm sure that even if I were to win a Grammy, they wouldn't even probably be like cool, But it's the world is a very different place now, right? And so I think that our parents' generation, I mean, whether you are Asian American or from an Asian cultural background or not, like the world is changing at such a different rate that, you know, I think it's hard for them to understand that you can make a living being, you don't have to be a Justin Bieber to make a living being a successful artist or creative. So their support, it was hard, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna pretend like it was like, oh yeah, you know, like we'll support you 100%. There are definitely times where, and maybe this will give hope to somebody else out there that, you know, it's not gonna be an easy road, it's not gonna be like paved perfectly, you know, brightly lit with like flowers waiting for you at the end of it. It's very, very rocky, and people are going to try to figure out, try to say things to you because they care, and they do genuinely care. But like I said, the world is in a very different place. Like 10 years ago, if you know, said that, what do you do for a living? I post on Facebook and Instagram for a living. You'd probably be like, what? Like, that's crazy, you know? Or post videos on the internet 10, 15 years ago. They'd be like, you can't make a living doing that, but you can. So, yeah, I think my parents they're supportive of it. They're not gonna stand in the way of my, you know, my future. This is really what I want, but they're not gonna just feed they're not like, here's like $1 million, here's $100,000, like go crazy. Like it's very like, if you want this, you're gonna have to work for it. And I'm glad for that, because I don't want to be one of those people that take things and go, yeah, well, it's, you know, just taking things for granted, you know. So yeah, no, I'm actually grateful for the hardships along the way. I think that it makes it so much better. That, like, you're really careful about what you put out there now. You take it much more seriously, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very true. Nina, you touched on the aspect of, like, you know, what got you into singing, how your family was supporting and all that. Like, when you finally set like your mind, like, I want to pursue this, like, give us a quick like summary or like quick recap of like that to where you currently are now, like of like what your journey was like how you started when you set your mind to it, and like where you are now.
So I had written a song, and it was released, and it started to kind of started to rise on the charts, the Beatport top charts, and people started following me on social media, and like, this is just my regular social media. Like, I didn't even think about having like an alias or anything like branding. Like, I was just me, Nina Sun, doing like just singing for people, and for one song, and you know, this is when like Zed was not as huge. I think he had clarity at the time. He had even heard this track, and like we were kind of like it was getting serious without me realizing it. Like, I was just doing it for fun. And to be honest with you, like, I never thought in a million years that I'd be a musician. In fact, it took me a really long time for me to even be like, hi, I'm Nina, I'm a songwriter. Like, it didn't even feel real. It was just kind of like a hobby. When that song started to rise in the charts, and I got really, really excited, and I was talking to my mom about it, like, my mom was like, I showed her the track, and she was like, okay, this is a little bit different, you know, this is like dance music. It was a dubstep track, I think. She's just like, okay, this is a little different, but I don't know, I think it was in 2014, I moved to LA, I didn't know anybody, I had like no money, and I just left. I broke up with my boyfriend at the time in San Diego. I had like what you would consider like a perfect life, because I lived next to the beach, I had my little dog, and like I had a wonderful relationship, but I pretty much, deep in my soul, I was like, something was calling me to go to LA. And I know it sounds so cliche, but I really just couldn't let myself live without giving this thing a shot. So I think it was 2014 was when I sat down with my family, and I was like, this is I want to pursue this. Like, I want to see where it takes me. Like, who knows, right? And from there, I lived in LA, and the studio that I was working in, the owner of the studio walked in on that session, and I didn't know who he was. And he just seemed like a regular old guy. I thought he was like friends with the producer that I was working with. And then a week later, he found me on Facebook and messaged me. He was like, hey, you know, I heard like the track, and like I wanted to see if you wanted to work together. And I went on his Facebook, and I realized he was the owner of that studio, Icon. Icon's the name of the studio. And that started our friendship, and he became like, you know, my mentor, and kind of guided me. And like, really, it became a situation where it was like, who you know. So it was like when David, his name's David, was literally introducing me to literally all the top producer and DJs in the game. It was like, I didn't even have to, it was like just doors started opening up over and over again. So it was nice. I think that from there, I was working heavily in the dance music scene. I worked with a bunch of guys like in, like, I don't know if you're, like, if you've heard of like Keizo, Millennium, Seven Lions, David Guetta, like a lot of these guys were people that I was surrounded with, and I was like, they were asking me to like work with them. And Millennium, who's now blown up, I'm so proud of him, but like he, I didn't even know who he was, but the studio engineer was like, hey, your voice would fit perfectly with this guy. And I was like, who's the guy, like this track? And he's like, it's with this guy named Millennium. And I was like, who's that? And this is like 2015. And Millennium just barely broke out into the scene, and now he's playing Coachella and a bunch of world tours and stuff like that. So same with Keizo is another artist that I worked with too. I mean, it's been like crazy. Like and then now I definitely have taken a step back from the dance music world, because I really wanted to be like, okay, well, what do I want to make? Like, what do I care about? And so to me, I've always loved, I'm from the Bay Area, so I love R&B and hip hop. Like, that's my roots actually. And so like, I love, I grew up listening to, of course, like Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Boys to Men, and like these are the artists that shaped me. And so NinaReed was pretty much something where I teamed up with my bandmate named Reed, who we met at music production school. I ended up going to music production school because I didn't want to have to rely on somebody else to make music. I wanted to be able to understand the technical side of everything too. So I decided to educate myself on it, and I would try to like watch YouTube videos, try to produce, but it was never the same. Like, I'm just not like that disciplined, so I had to go to school and do it, and that's where I met my bandmate Reed. And what turned out to be something where we were not going to turn into like a serious project at all, one song turned into two, and two songs turned into like 50 or 60 some odd songs, and we were like, we worked really well together, like, and we were both like thinking about it. I was like, wait, do you want to like maybe make a project out of it? And now it's turned into our major project, like our main focus.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
You touched on this in a couple of your answers earlier. I think how I want to say it is, there's people who think of becoming a singer or want to, they have that desire, but then they decide not to. Maybe schooling gets in the way, or they find a career and stuff. But then I think what you touched on, you said is like, you wanted to try it, like you wanted to do it before, like, you look back and say, what if, like that one. So like, advice-wise, what would you tell those people who are in maybe a similar situation? Like, they think about it, like, oh, I wish I could do singing and stuff, but I'm right now in school, or I'm pursuing this career. Like, what would we tell them who has that kind of strong desire or interest into that creative side of the field?
I would say that you only have one life, right? And I mean, like, I think the biggest regret that you will ever make is just that question of what if. Like, what if I just tried it, right? And it doesn't hurt to try, and I think that's the number one thing. The thing is, though, if you do decide to become an artist in any sort of, or creative in any form, whether you want to be a singer or a video content creator or whatever, something that's unconventional, like, you're gonna have to understand it takes discipline and a lot of hard work. And it's going to take a lot of people around you to kind of understand that as well. There's a lot of daily demons and battles that you're gonna go through in your own like mind. And I will tell you this, like, I have a lot of friends that are very successful in the industry, and I'm very fortunate enough to call them my friends. And I will always just go grab coffee with them or grab lunch with them, and people that you would never even imagine, these are people that are super established, that are touring the world, that they tell me, they're like, yeah, like, there are times when I wonder if I should just quit, and so what I want to really say is the media, or, what you see on Instagram, or social media now, right, is you're going to see it's a curated, perfectly manicured, well-filtered, photoshopped version of what you get to see and what they want to show you. It's not the whole picture. And the whole picture is, so don't ever compare your real life with someone else's highlight reel. Always understand that, you know, there's many hours of just hard work and tears shed and, you know, just, you know, doubting every day, you know, people that you think have even the nicest cars and they have like it all, they've made it, they still wonder whether they should keep doing it, you know. And that's something that I think not a lot of people will tell you, but I'll tell you that. So don't let it discourage you, I guess, is what I'm saying, is that, you know, in any kind of situation, whether you want to be a doctor or a singer, you're going to go through days where it's like, I hate this, I can't, but you have to ask yourself, like, is there anything else that you would rather do? And if the truth is that it would make you happier to be a doctor, if it would make you happier to be, you know, whatever that conventional thing is, then that's what you should do. There's nothing wrong with that either. But, you know, I choose this because this is the only thing that made sense at the end of the day. And I remember Lupe Fiasco, he had this interview and I read it, and he was talking about the music industry, how he's like, he said, it's like dating this absolutely crazy girl. You're in love with her, but she's absolutely crazy. Like one minute you're like having the best time with her, and the next minute she's about to run you over with her car. And you're just like, what's going on? Like the next minute she's a completely different person, and that's literally what it's like to be in the music industry. And to be honest with you, like, he's not wrong. You know, there are days where you're like, everyone's like, yeah, you're on top of it. Like, that was sick. Like, congrats. You know, I heard your track. Da, 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 da. And then there's the next minute where it's like, no one even cares. Or, you know, somebody that you've looked up to just was like, who are you? Like, you know, and so it's even when you do hit a mark or you make it, let's say you get a Grammy or whatever that milestone or landmark that you're thinking in your head, like I say, if you're gonna be an artist, my best advice is get rid of it. Like, get rid of that. Like, do it because you love the struggle, do it because you love the journey. Because if you don't fall in love with that part, the hard work, you know, the hours of editing or practicing or writing and the parts that people don't get to see, if you don't fall in love with that, you're not gonna make it. And that's what I've realized, is that people who make it are people because they love that part. They love the grind. They love just the process rather than the result. That makes sense.
That's not like great like insight and advice, I think.
Yeah.
That's really well done.
Yeah.
You know, you just released a new single, so it'd be great to hear about that, but also just any future projects that you're allowed to say, so that, you know, fans and like future fans can know like what to expect and to look out for.
Well, I did actually release that track, this new track, In My Sleep. So that was actually a song I wrote 3 years ago, but it's finally out. We signed that record to this a record label named Artist Intelligence Agency.
Awesome.
They want to sign another record of mine, and we're shopping that around. But I think what's honestly next is I'm like, I could see NinaReed as a project. It's a baby project. You know, it's getting some, like, on the back end, it's getting some attention from record labels, but I'm actually purposely kind of like protecting my baby. Like, no, you can't see my baby yet. We're not signing her away. We're not selling her to you yet. She's not for sale. So I think we're just, right now we have about, I told you that Reed and I had like sort of amassed like a catalog of songs. So we're going to be releasing a good part of that when we have something called the Prismatic Project. So it's a series of 6 different EPs. Each EP has about 3 to 4 tracks, some of them 5. So it's already all on the layout. So the next track is going to be the rest of the Candlelight Project. So the first one was the Midnight EP, the next is going to be the Candlelight EP, and each like name, like Midnight is kind of more bluish and purplish tones, and Candlelight's more yellow and red. This sounds really abstract and really like, okay, what does that mean? But you'll have to go to the website to check it out, and you'll understand, because it all kind of creates this whole prism. And it's because I love the idea of like sounds and colors. But NinaReed is actually, right now, we are just purely a songwriting and production like duo right now. And as far as live performance goes, like we still haven't quite figured that out, to be totally honest. But as far as Nina sung, like as far as my own thing, like I'm still writing for other dance music and performing with a couple of the DJs that are touring around too. So that's kind of cool because I get to have both my own thing and I get to have NinaReed as well. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Right, Nina, thank you for that amazing interview. It gave me a little insight and just getting us for us to be able to learn more about you. So thank you for doing that. It's really enjoyable. Before we wrap it up, like how can people find you social media site wise, and also just how to find your music?
Yeah, so you can pretty much just find me anywhere if you just write NinaReed, NinaReed music on Instagram. And that's pretty much the handle across the board, even on Facebook as well. So, but that's what, and then our website, NinaReedofficial.com, and you can find me, Nina Sung, on Spotify. So you can actually put Nina Sung or NinaReed music on NinaReed on Spotify, and you should be able to find us. So, but thanks for having me.
No problem.
Yeah.
So guys, if you want to follow me, my Instagram is Kotaro Prince, and thank you to check them out as well, Battalion Entertainment, for putting this interview together. And Nina Sung, thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see your future projects.
Thank you.
Bye guys.
On my skin.